Welcome back, and please welcome in Collin Hartman, the former IU baller that you know quite well. What's up, brother?
What's up, Jim? How are you? I don't know if I was a baller, but I dabble.
Hey, they could use you at times right now, trust me. But how things going with you? I know you've been in. We'll talk about the basketball in a little bit, but uh, more importantly, you've been involved or not involved with. You run the section of the NIL for Hoosiers for Good, which is the official NIL arm of Indiana University, and then they have a I don't know what you call it, a branch or what you would call it, but anyway, Hoosiers Connect is a offshoot of that for a different type of NIL donor, but uh, that's what you've been doing. How's that been?
It's been interesting. It's been an ever changing world. I think it's good for the athletes. I think it's good for the businesses that are getting involved, the charities that we partner with. I think all across the board we've seen people get real value out of engaging in it. And it's just kind of been interesting navigating it all. We know we finished last year off really strong with hitting that $1 million match, which was amazing. And then, trying to hit the ground running this year. So we've signed a new class with Hoosiers for Good and across many different sports. It's good to see the athletes in with their partner charity and get something out of it as well. So, and the charities feel that impact, whether it's social media, whether it's interacting with, the kids in their charity, depending on what the charity is, or, just raising awareness. So it's been overall across the board very impactful to all parties.
And that's, of course, how it's intended to be. I know you guys are trying to affect everything and everyone as best you can. And certain people they're like, well, we want this and we want that, and it doesn't work that way. But it's certainly a different landscape now for these athletes that has to be navigated. And we've seen like the case in Florida with the kid that they apparently had a $13 million. We don't know if those numbers are even real or not, but the fact that stuff happens, that's the danger out there, and that's why Indiana wants to make sure they are partnered with Hoosiers for Good and Hoosiers Connect as their arm, so those types of things don't happen.
Precisely, and that's one of the things that we're hearing more and more often. We have conversations with agents of the athletes who work with players all across the country at different universities, and it's pretty, for lack of a better term, flattering and fulfilling to hear their feedback when they say and they truly appreciate how we treat their players from an NIL perspective. We treat them as humans. We deliver on our obligations to the contracts and things of that nature. And they say a lot of universities aren't doing that. They're not going about it the right way. They're not going about it the way that we are. And word's starting to spread a little bit more about how we are conducting ourselves in the NIL space. And it's cliche, but it's kind of the Indiana way that we just want to do things the right way. We might not be the highest paying NIL collectives in the country. We're going to be extremely competitive in that space in terms of dollar amounts and deals to the right players and the right fits. But at the same time, is we deliver what we say we're going to deliver. And that's something that's not happening around the country. And I think, like you referenced the guy in Florida, I think you're going to continue to see more and more of that. I think it was Texas Tech football. I think they had, I want to mess these numbers up, so don't quote me, but they're close. I think there was like 27 players that went to Texas Tech in the last class, and only 2 of them are staying. The rest are transferring. And several of those players have cited NIL and lack thereof, undelivered promises, stuff like that, which I want to clarify. The promises part is the illegal part. Like with the Florida situation where he was promised, right? So that 13 million, whatever that number was, it doesn't matter. The part that matters is that the collective and Gator Collective has really been towing the line on having conversations with recruits before they get on campus. We don't talk to a kid at all unless they're already signed and already enrolled and already on campus and classified as a student athlete at Indiana University. And there's some compliance things, hoops that they have to jump through to get enrolled and do all that, but we don't talk to them until then. So, I think it's very interesting that news gets out, and it's kind of a blatant infraction against the regulations around NIL about having conversations and inducing an athlete to come there based on NIL promises. It's weird to me. I don't know how it happens.
Hey, man, that's life, right? Trying to undo. I wish someone would offer me. I don't care if they cut it in half or not. I need an NIL deal, man. I've been trying. I can't find any takers, Collin.
Hey, we'll get you time one of these days, Jim.
Damn, I'm like, damn it. I'm like, I don't care. I'll take Elon or Kennesaw State, even maybe, whatever it takes. The basketball team, I know you guys are not involved with that, but when it comes to recruiting, what is the involvement of the NIL? How do they do that? How do they say, hey, here's, what we could do or potentially do for you in that area? How is that approached?
Well, so the university gives presentations and is allowed to give presentations on just the current NIL environment from both an educational standpoint and an opportunistic standpoint. The university never gives numbers. They never promise numbers. They never do any of that. What is permissible is the student athletes or the recruits having conversations with current athletes, right, about what they're currently getting. That's fine for them to share from the student athlete standpoint. And so it really does boil down to the fact that we have a supportive infrastructure in place that gives the current student athletes good opportunities, meaningful opportunities in the NIL space, and that word spreads. So that's really what transpires. The university, like I said, gives a presentation on what infrastructure we have in place, and then it's elaborated on by the players on who's getting what kind of thing, and there's no promise that you'll get that if you come here, but just kind of an educational standpoint on the current environment, what current athletes are getting if those athletes are willing to share that. So it's just really word of mouth, and the university is pretty careful about not saying any numbers in terms of promissories or anything like that. So that's kind of how it transpires, really. But the university, they're going about it the right way, and just doing it the Indiana way. And it's, like I said, it's cliche, but it's true, and it's been working for us. And the word's starting to spread, not just to high school kids, not just to transfers, through the agents, through their families of the student athletes are taking note. So I think in the long run, it'll be very good for Indiana University athletics with the way that we're going about things.
Well, I know one question that will probably be very, very prevalent at the end of the season, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but Trace Jackson Davis has another year of eligibility left to play at Indiana University.
Yeah.
And that could be a sticky wicket depending on where he is projected in the draft. Because I think, and I don't even know what he makes NIL wise, but I'm going to guess it's more than he would make in Europe. So that would be, if he was not in the, a first round draft pick, I don't know what you do there.
Yeah. We've we've put thought to that, and it's, I think Bleacher Report put out like a mock draft or something of that nature, like a week or so ago, and Trace was projected second round. He's making a strong case for himself not to be second round the last several games, but I don't know. I mean, that's going to be an interesting situation. I don't know the dollar amount, but it's not low.
Yeah, right.
um,
Well, I think everybody knows that already.
yeah, it's just a very
And,
interesting situation.
well, and
In
you
my
also there's another dynamic to this. It gives him the
Dave,
opportunity to play another year. He could be the big man on campus again, and his brother could be the head man, big man on campus for the football team if he ends up being the starting quarterback.
yeah, that's kind of an added layer, like you said, into the complexity of him possibly coming back. I don't think that it's even on his radar right now.
You better hope that they don't get together and make this a package deal.
Hey, Taven's already on campus, all right. uh, but no, it's yeah. I mean, it's going to be extremely interesting. Looking forward, you're gonna have several guys leave, right? You're gonna have Xavier, Miller, Race, um, possibly Trace. Now, if Trace stays, it's a different ball game. Probably Jalen's going to leave, so it's going to be a completely different team next year. If all of those guys leave, now if Trace stays, it gets a little less dicey. Um, but we're going to have next year if all of those guys leave, uh, we're going to have some of these young guns have to really step up and mature really quickly um, for us to be back in the hunt again next year.
Yeah, and you've
Or
got
the
the new
transfer
guys
portal is going
coming
to have to
in.
be crazy.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to do a little bit of both, I think,
Yep.
without question, because of the uncertainty of who will be here. Something I want to know, and I know it's not there now, and I don't know if it's even on the radar,
Okay.
and I don't know that people even know this, but the NIL deals that are signed, none of them require a kid to stay or go to a particular university, and
Correct.
it can't tie them to that university. There are ways to make it difficult to not fulfill your duties to earn that NIL money if they were, someplace else. But the thing for me is, I think that there needs to be contracts. This money is it's too big, and you know what? The student athletes, they didn't get what they deserved for a long, long time. Now I think it's been a 180. They're getting everything. They have all the leverage. They can do what they want when they want, go and come and go as they please. I'm like, okay, that's got to stop. You've got. I think that there has to be a contract that you can limit it to 2 years or whatever if you want, but I think that if you're going to if someone's making that kind of a commitment to you, then you have to make a commitment back and say, all right, I'm going to commit. And that will alleviate some of this portal business where you've got way too many kids hitting the portal.
It's an interesting situation because there's a fine line, right? We have all of our athletes sign contracts, um, but they never exceed a year's time for a multitude of situations. Just because the NCAA regulations, from an inducement or obligating them to stay, um, is tough, right? I think they're one of the things that comes into them staying for multiple years. Um, is feeling the value of that first year's contract, right? Feeling valued, um, having the right number, right? Um, and ultimately having future opportunities that could be potentially higher, right? And this is one thing that I think Coach Allen and Coach Woodson both have the same sentiment about, just knowing them, is they're not so much concerned about NIL being the number one thing. It's up there, right? But they also want players that want to be in Indiana, that want to play for Coach Allen, that want to play for Coach Woodson, put on the candy stripes, do all that. They want kids that want to be there, because it's just like any other job. Um, if you win a kid on NIL money, doesn't matter what you do, you can lose that same kid on NIL money. But if that athlete wants to be there because they're invested in the coaching staff, they like the facilities, they like the school, whatever it is, they love their teammates, they want to win. Um, that has to obviously come into the play as well, outside of just because I'm not so concerned of athletes leaving for money, because at that point they didn't really want to be here anyways. They're more concerned about the wrong things um, rather than just winning and losing. Um, so at the end of the day, it's a loss we're willing to take if we're going to lose money on bids, because we're not going to get in that bidding war. We have a market value kind of established that we think is appropriate for athletes, and kind of thinking through that and circumstantially. And if we're going to lose an athlete on money, then that's fine to them, right? So um, we kind of take that approach a little bit of the kids have to want to be here as well. We'll give them great opportunities, competitive opportunities, but we're not going to do this back and forth of, well, this school offer is going to be offering me this. Like we're not having that conversation. Speaking of like an athlete being, thinking about entering the transfer portal or whatever that may be, we're not going back and forth. We're going to have a number that we think your value is to our organizations and our partners, and we're going to stick with it.
Look forward to talking quickly. Last night's game, Indiana goes to Minnesota, the last place team. But you know what? After that game, I was like, from an analyst standpoint, I'm like, you know what? I know that things didn't go well. They didn't do a lot of things well, but I think I call that an Al Davis game. Just win, baby. Win that game. Get the hell out of there. Get back home, because those games are going to happen. Every team in this conference, including Purdue, has had those games. If you win them, that's all that matters, especially on the road without the head coach. And that's what I wanted to ask. What is the effect of not having the head coach, especially on a road game?
It's just going to feel weird to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, I think the weirdest part was that it was sprung on them so quickly, right? But I think that the main role of the assistant coaches is to build the rapport as well, because they run the scouts, right? They do the scouts, and that's how Coach Rosemont, ended up leading that coaching staff last night. And the players have to have faith in him, right? Because he knows that Minnesota team inside and out. That's his job for that game. So as a player, you kind of just have to have faith and, circle the wagons and be like, look, here's the deal. Our game plan is still the same on both offensively and defensively. We still have the same players. They still have the same players. And while we don't have Coach Woodson with us, like at the end of the day, it's still basketball. You still got to go get the win. And nobody is going to give you the excuse that you didn't have the head coach if you lose that game. So you got to go take care of business.
Exactly, and they did. I agree with you, brother.